And at this point, I want to introduce Jim Shea, who is a member of our committee and the president of the Friends of Depot Park.
Thank you, and welcome to everyone and to our distinguished guests up here. Thank you, Joe, for those kind remarks. But Joe wouldn't tell you this, but I will. The project would not have happened without Joe's participation. He's not a railroad person. He's not into the historical aspects of this, but he saw the value of this project for the town and for the region. So I really think this is a great day for Bedford, the Minuteman Bikeway, and for the preservation of our local railroad history. I want to acknowledge that we have some other distinguished guests in the crowd today. I know that we have some retired Boston Maine Railroad employees, notably Mr. Robert Howe, who was a conductor on this train in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And I also see Ellis Walker, who worked up at the Billerica Shops facility and maintained the Boston and Maine's equipment. Joe mentioned Dan O'Brien. He maintained these Bud Rail diesel cars back in the 1970s, and he was an instrumental force in this project. And as Joe mentioned, the restoration of this car would not have happened without Dan O'Brien's involvement. Russell Monroe, he was a conductor in freight service on the Bedford Branch, and is familiar with this car as well. Now, when you look behind me, you might see an old building and an old railroad car, but they're really much more than that. Objects tell stories, and these two objects tell remarkable stories. This building right here started its life in 1877 as the engine house for the 2-foot gauge Billerica and Bedford Railroad, which was the country's first 2-foot gauge common carrier railway, which went from here 8.63 miles up to North Billerica. The building was originally across the street. When the Billerica and Bedford Railroad ceased to operate, the standard gauge railroad, at the time the Boston and Lowell Railroad, which was a railroad before the B&M, acquired the building. They moved it to its current location, and they converted it from an engine house into a freight house. That's why we call it the freight house today. But at one time, there was a big garage door at the end, and there were two narrow gauge steam locomotives in this building side by side. And there really isn't much left from that unique piece of our history in 1877, other than this building. So this is a very special building, and it's marvelous that the town of Bedford was able to step up with the help of the state and federal governments to preserve it for all time. And the railroad car, rail diesel car number 6211, is much more than a railroad car because it's an iconic symbol of American transportation ingenuity. The reason I say that is prior to the Budd Company's invention of the rail diesel car in 1949, self-propelled railroad cars had been unsuccessful, and the Budd Company, through its ingenuity, developed this car. It's really a combination locomotive and passenger car. There were two Detroit diesel engines beneath the car, and the cars could run by themselves or connected with other RDCs into a train of multiple units. This isn't just an RDC, it's a car that actually operated on the Bedford branch back in the 1960s and 70s. And when you have a chance to go through the rail car and see all the tremendous work that's been done to renovate it, you're going to see photos of the car across the street in 1960 in the old railroad yard. You'll see it going through Lexington Depot. So it's quite special that we were able to not just preserve a railroad car, but one that actually operated on the Bedford branch that is today the Minuteman Bikeway. Restoring this car was an incredible feat. You'll see photos of what it looked like when it was in the woods of Billerica, abandoned for some 16 years. And the car today has been restored to its original factory colors inside. It's back the way it was when it was built in 1955. Kudos to Dan O'Brien and all the volunteers from the Friends and the contractors who labored on this thing since 1998. And I want to just wrap up by saluting all the members of the Friends of Bedford Depot Park, some 184 strong, I understand right now. They had tremendous perseverance. We started this organization back in 1995. Who would have imagined it would take 14 years to get to this point, but they all hung in, and they supported us all along with their donations and with their contributions of time. So it's been a remarkable partnership between a nonprofit group and the town of Bedford to accomplish this tremendous site that we have here now. Joe, I'll turn it back to you.
Our next speaker is Angelo Colao, representing the Board of Selectmen.
Thanks, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bedford Depot Park. On behalf of the Selectmen, I want to thank our noted guests and all of you for coming, for attending this special ceremony. This is in recognition of the hard work that Joe and Jim just told you about by everyone who got us to this dedication of this unique historic park. By the way, I say unique because Jim had showed me a book written in France that discussed the Bedford and Billerica Railroad. So, and then there were people here from Great Britain looking to talk about the Bedford and Billerica Railroad. So we're known worldwide, believe it or not. Not many years ago, this part of Bedford was a dull commercial area. Then, as Joe indicated, in 1993, this began to change as the newly constructed bikeway was done. Unfortunately, the major problem was the bikeway came out and ended into a disorganized intersection. At that time, the concept for Depot Park was being discussed, so also the selectmen recognized the fact that this area should be made safe and take care of this busy intersection. As a result, the intersection improvement project became a reality and was implemented as part of a master plan for Depot Park. And it provided a location for our farmers market across the way also. And net result for all of this is an excellent transformation of this area, and this is just the beginning as I see it. The fuel for this project is the enormous financial help Bedford received from the state and federal government and the town CPA fund that allow us to acquire this property and do all the restorations. Sizable donations were made to town by the Friends of Bedford Depot Park, and as Joe indicated, they put in a lot of time and a lot of hours. They bought the train and got everything started here. Lastly, there is one major achievement associated with this project. This project should soon become financially self-supporting due to the revenue from the Freight House Welcome Center, along with the rentals of the rail car. You can rent a rail car for birthdays, meetings, whatever you want. Just go through Fargo or Town Hall. And this will cover the operating costs for these facilities, and including the newly constructed bathrooms behind this building. In closing, I want to say that this group of projects is an excellent achievement for Bedford and for the whole region. The Selectmen would like to sincerely thank all of the people who worked so hard to make this a great success. Thank you.